Okay, today we are going to discuss standard costing and variance analysis. No, okay. So hopefully everyone are ready to listen for the topic for today on management advisory services, particularly on standard costing and variance analysis. Well, let's have a short recap or review. On the basic concepts of standard cost, standard costing system, and variance. Standard costs are predetermined costs, okay? And then again, standard costs sometimes are considered budget, model, norms, or the benchmark. And these are basis for price fixation, and for cost control. And then we have what we call standard costing system, a valuation method that uses a predetermined norms for different materials, direct labor, and overhead to assign cost to various inventory accounts and cost of goods sold. And this costing system is being used by job order costing system or by process costing system. A variance naman is yung sinasabing difference of the standard cost and the actual cost. And then, the difference, whether favorable or unfavorable variance yung lumabas, is subject for evaluation and investigation. Okay. So, my first illustration is about the computation of standard direct material cost per unit. Okay. RTW company manufactures a one-size-fits-all ready-to-wear outfit and uses a standard cost system. Each unit of finished outfit contains 2 yards of fabric that costs 75 pesos per yard. Based on experience, a 20% loss on fabric input is incurred. The solution for that particular problem would be this. Okay? That is the cost of fabric, that is 75. Number of yards, dalawa, dahil sa isang unit, 2 yarda ang kailangan. So, the cost of fabric is 150. Yung 80%, sir, saan po galing yan? Okay, take note that the 150 pesos that we have computed is net already of the 20%. Meaning, the 150 pesos that we have computed do not or does not include the 20% loss on fabric input. So, if it does not include the 20% loss on fabric, we need to determine the value of the cost of fabric that includes the 20% loss. So, itong 80% loss is the 100% minus the 20% loss. Kasi, gagamitin po natin yan, okay, to divide to 150 para lumabas yung standard direct material cost na 187.5. So, ibig po bang sabihin na once we determine the standard direct material cost or the standard cost, we need to include the loss. Yes, we need to include the loss, assuming that loss is a normal loss. Okay? So that's why we include that particular loss as part of the standard direct material cost. So the answer for the direct material standard cost is 187.5. Okay? Take note, if there were losses provided and it is considered normal, it shall be form part of the cost, okay, of the particular material or labor. How about the standard variable cost? Ito naman, the second item that I have prepared is the determination of the standard variable cost per unit. Okay. The Max company has developed the following standards for one of its product. Direct materials, 15 pounds by 16 per pound, which is a variable cost. Alam natin yan. The direct labor, which is 4 hours by 24 per pound, which is also a variable cost. And a variable manufacturing overhead, 4 hours by 14 pesos per hour, which is also a variable cost. So, itong tatlong ito, alam na natin kasama to sa pag-compute ng variable standard cost. Kasi, yung rini-require naman to compute the variable cost per unit at its standard, okay, ito lang namang itong tatlong ito kailangan. How about the second paragraph? The following activity occurred during the month. From the term occurred, Okay? So, ibig sabihin, from this term na occurred, we can easily identify that determine that these costs and figures below are based on actual. So, this will not be form part of the standard cost. So, hindi na po natin yung pagtutuunan ng pansin kasi it will never affect on the determination of the standard variable cost per unit. So, itong tatlong to sa taas, this will form part of the standard variable cost per unit. Tanong mo ngayon, what is the standard variable cost per unit? Okay. This will be the computation. That is 240. Paano po na-compute yung 240? The 240 is computed using, take note that each unit requires 15 pounds multiply by 16 pesos, lumabas si 240. Yung 96, ganun rin. You multiply 4 hours, okay, 4 hours times 24, lumabas yung 96. And then, same with 56, you multiply 4 hours, multiply by 14. So, that's 56. So, if you're going to add this 3, okay, that is 392. 240 plus 96 plus 56, that is 392. Okay, that's the standard variable cost per unit. Kasi yun lang naman yung requirement sa problem. Again, once we compute the standard variable cost per unit, make sure to identify how many units, how many kilos, how many pounds, okay, are required on each unit, and how much each kilos, yung bawat isa. Okay? So, ganun lang po yun. Okay? So, that's the standard variable cost per unit. How about the standard quantity cost per unit? Ito naman. The standard quantity cost per unit. Hankies Unlimited has a signature scarf for ladies that is very popular. Certain production and marketing data are indicated below. Cost per yard of cloth, 36. Allowance of rejected scarf, ito take note. The allowance or the normal loss is considered as part of the quantity or as of cost or of the cost, no? Part po siya sa pag-determine ng cost. Okay? Yards of cloth needed per scarf is 0.475. Air freight from supplier, 0.6 per yard. Motor freight to customers, 0.9 per yard. Purchase discount, okay, purchase discount is 3%. Then the sales discount to customers is 2%. The allowance for rejected scarf is not part, take note, this is a very important statement. The allowance for rejected scarf is not part of the 0.475 yard of cloth per scarf. Ibig sabihin, the 0.475 yard does not include yung na-reject. So, we need to work it back yung 0.475 kung magkano yung na-reject. Okay? Kung magkano ang cloth per scarf, assuming there were no rejects. Okay? Rejects have no market value. Materials are used at the start of production. Calculate the standard cost of scarf that Hankies should use in its cost sheets. To compute that, ito po yung ginawa kong computations. I prepared two different computation, no? Okay? Una, I have the cost per yard, which is 36, and the discount related to that purchase. Paano po na-compute yan? That is 36 times 0.03. Okay, the discount related to the purchase. Net of discount of the particular item is 34.92. If this, kung 34.92, and then we add direct attributable cost na 0.6, ano itong 0.6 na to? This is the air fare coming from the supplier. Ito yon, no? Air freight coming from the supplier per yard. That's 0.6. How about the motor freight to customer, sir? Why it is not included? It is not included because it is a expense on the part of the company. Okay? So the cost per yard in total is 35.52. Okay? Ano? 35.52. I prepare two ways of computing, no? Okay, lagyan natin po ng okay, ng space para okay. If you have two different ways to okay, any of the two computations are acceptable if you want to determine the standard cost per unit. Ito 'yon, no? Okay. You can use ito na the cost per yard at 35.52, which is the sum of 36 minus 0.08, that's the net discount, plus 0.6, that's 35.52. Okay, required yard in each unit is 0.475 only. I multiply itong 16.87, that's 35.52 times 0.457. Bakit minultiply mo, sir, yung 35.52 sa 0.475? Take note, the cost per yard, the cost provided is in a yard basis. Yung required lang sa bawat unit is 0.475 lang. Okay? At yung 0.475 does not include the rejected portion or the rejected scarf. Okay? So, the value is 16.87. Cost of 0.475 yard, 16.87. Take note, we have a normal loss of 5%. Eh, bakit 95% na lang dyan? Because 100% minus 5%, ibig sabihin, itong 16.87 na to, ito yung cost that do not, or not, the cost that does not includes the allowance for rejected scarf. Itong 16.87 is the cost that does not include, okay, the allowance for rejected scarf. So we need to determine what is the value of the cloth of the first scarf, assuming that there were no rejected. So we need to divide that, no, para lumabas yung para ma-work back siya at 17.76. So 16.87 divided by 0.95, or 16.87 divided by 0.95, that is 17.76. That's one way of computing the standard cost per unit. Pero kung gusto mong malaman naman magkano ang standard quantity talaga related to that particular unit na produce natin. Take note, we have 35.52 the cost per yard. Okay? Okay, ito 'yon. Saan po galing itong 0.5? Itong 0.5 na to, una kung ito yung way of computing mo, dahil baka itanong, no, what is the standard quantity? Itong 0.475 is not yet the standard quantity. This refers pa lang the quantity of the cloth in each scarf that is used, assuming that the allowance for rejected scarf is not part. So, we need to include the allowance for that rejected scarf. So, 0.475 divided by 0.95, okay, saan na naman galing yung 0.95? Kasi, the 0.475 already a net of the 5% reject. So, we need to work it back para lumabas yung 100%. So, the standard quantity talaga is 0.5. So, that's the standard quantity. That includes the rejected scarf. Okay? So, that's 0.5, the standard quantity. If you're going to multiply 0.5 to 35.52, that is 17.76. Take a look, 35.52 times 0.5, that is 17.76. So, whatever computation you use, no, it will come up with the same answer. Itong computation na to, dire-diretso siya. Pero ito, kung gusto mo malaman kung magkano talaga ang standard quantity, ito yon. Ito gamitin mo. Ito gamitin mo, and then, lalabas din naman yung standard cost per unit. Okay? It will have the same result. So you don't need to worry about. Yung problema lang, the first solution that I made, you cannot easily identify the standard quantity. Unlike the second one, you have determined first the standard quantity, okay, for each scarf so that you can identify the standard cost per unit. Yun lang yung pagkakaiba doon. Okay. Next, the standard quantity per unit. Ito naman, no? Saxon Corporation uses a standard cost system. Okay? The following information pertains to direct materials for the month of May. Okay? For the month of May. Standard price per pound is 12 pesos, and then actual purchase price per pound is 11, and the quantity purchased is 6,200, the quantity used is 5,900, and the standard quantity allowed for actual output is 6,000, and the actual output is 1,000 units. Saxon reports its material price variance at the time of purchase. What is the standard quantity of direct materials per unit for Saxon Corporation? Madali lang po ito. Kasi, if we're going to determine the standard quantity in each unit, take note, the total standard quantity is always based on the actual output. Considering that the standard quantity allowed for the standard quantity based on actual output is provided, which is 6,000, and the actual output is provided as well, 1,000, we can now determine the standard quantity per unit by simply, ito yon, dividing, okay, 6,000 divide, ito yon, 6,000 divide 1,000, that is 6 pounds for each unit. Again, no, to determine the total standard quantity, standard used, standard hours, standard hours in a particular output, okay, it must be based on the actual output na meron ka. That is the standard quantity, the standard hours, or the standard number of units. Okay? So, that is 6 pounds. Okay? So, yun. Tapos na po tayo, no? On the basics. Yung standard hours, standard direct materials, standard quantity, then yung determination ng standard quantity per unit din. Ngayon, let's focus our topic on the variances. Okay? There are two different ways. There are two variants that we need to understand on materials. The material price variance and the material quantity variance, or the material usage variance. Okay, again, no? The material price variance and the material quantity variance, or material usage variance. Okay. To illustrate the material price variance, okay, this is the problem that I want you to base, no? The standard direct material cost to produce a unit of lem is 4 meters of materials at 2.5 per meter. During May 2020, 4,200 meters of material costing 10,080 were purchased and used to produce 1,000 units of lem. What was the material price variance for May 2020? Okay, to simply compute that, ito yung computation natin. Okay? Standard price, binigay naman sa problem yung 2.5. Kaso, yung actual price the actual price was not given. How did I come up with that actual price? Take note, the total cost of purchase is 10,080. Ito yon, total cost of purchase. Okay? And then, the number of meters you acquired is 4,200 meters. Okay? So, using those information, we can now identify the actual cost per unit. Which is 2.4, and that is our actual price per unit. The difference between the standard price and the actual price is yung tinatawag na price variance agad. Okay? Pero, in a per unit basis pa lang yan. Okay? Which is already favorable. Bakit favorable? 2.5, okay? Yung standard, pero nabili mo lang ng mura. That is 2.4. Okay? So, that is 0.10. Okay? No? Pag ganito ang nangyari, no? Price variance favorable, then yung usage variance unfavorable. Ang explanation natin doon, no? Mura siya, kaso substandard yon. Okay? Take note, ha? Pag yung price variance mo favorable, okay, and then the usage variance mo unfavorable, may tendency na pwede nating sabihin substandard ang nagamit natin, nabili natin, kasi mas marami ang nagamit, even though nakatipid, pero marami pa rin nagamit, may tendency substandard ang nabili natin. Okay? So, yun, no? So, price variance is 0.10. The price variance is 0.10, favorable kasi mas mura nating nabili kaysa sa benchmark natin at 2.5, and then multiply that 0.10 to the actual purchase and used, no? Bakit actual purchase and use yung nilagay ko? Okay, take note of this. If the problem is silent as to what would be our multiplier to the price variance, okay, yung gagamitin natin is the actual purchase. Take note, if the problem is silent, as to what multiplier we'll be using to determine the material price variance, gagamitin natin yung actual purchase. Okay, actual purchase. Unless otherwise, the problem clearly stipulate that you need to determine the material price variance based on usage. Okay? In this case, maganda yung problem kasi kung ano yung nabili, yun din lahat yung nagamit. Kaya, actually purchase and use yung nalagay kong term. Okay? Of 4,200. So, the problem is silent as to what price variance. Yung kailangan gamitin is purchase. Take note of that. There are certain problems, no, that you will encounter in the actual board exam that the actual purchase is different to what was actually used. Pero, if the problem is silent as to what material price variance are you going to compute, you need to base that on what was actually purchased. Okay, so price variance of 0.10 multiplied by 4,200 actually purchased and used, kasi ginamit din naman lahat yon. We have a material price variance of 420 favorable. So, in short, to compute for material price variance, that is the difference between the standard price and the actual price, then the difference shall be multiplied to the actual quantity purchased. Okay? Purchased. Pwedeng gamitin yung actual quantity used if the problem says used the actual quantity used. Take note, if the problem clearly provided you to use the actual quantity used. Okay, if the problem is silent, let's use actual quantity purchased. Next, materials quantity variance. Okay, the standard usage of raw materials is 5 pounds at 4 pesos per pound. ABC company spent 13,940 in purchasing 3,400 pounds. ABC used 3,150 pounds to produce units of finished product. In this case, may standard usage tayo na 5 pounds in each item. Binigay din yung actual purchase, then actual usage in terms of pounds. Ngayon, problema mo, sir, what are we going to use if we're going to compute for the material quantity variance? The material quantity variance, its other term is material usage variance. So, once we are required to compute for the material quantity variance, because its other term is material usage variance, dapat it must be based on the standard quantity less the actual quantity used. Again, standard quantity less the actual quantity used. Kasi the material quantity variance refers to the variance that the variance in terms of usage. Yun yung tinatarget niya. Okay? So, okay, but in this case, dalawa yung computation ko, no? To illustrate lang, if the problem tells you to compute that based on purchase. Okay? Pero if the problem is silent, ito yung priority dapat computein natin. Itong side na to, no? Based on usage. Okay? If the problem is silent. Kasi, that must be in usage. If the problem requires you to compute the material quantity variance based on purchase, ito naman ang gagawin natin. Okay? Sige. Paano po na-compute yun? That is the standard quantity, which is, paano kung po, sir, na-compute yung 3,000? That is simply, take note, 5,000 pounds in every unit, multiply by the actual output na meron tayo na 600, so we have 3,000. So, the 3,000 came from the 5 pounds for each unit, multiply to the number of units actually produced. So, we come up with 3,000. Actual quantity used, kasi the problem is silent, we will base that on the actual quantity used. So, that is 3,150, which is clearly provided in the problem. The difference between the standard quantity and the actual quantity is what we called the variance already. Pero, quantity variance yan. Okay? Variance na po ang tawag dito. Okay? Which is 150. Ano kaya nangyari dito? Standard mo, 3,000, pero yung nagamit mo, marami. Ito yung sinasabi ko, no? Possible, mura mong nabili, pero marami kang nagamit. Ayun, isang reason dun, no? Mura, pero substandard pala. Okay, kaya marami ang nagamit. This is already unfavorable variance because you expect to use only 3,000, but then what you actually used is 3,150. So there is a negative 150 unfavorable variance. Then multiply that variance to the standard price of 4 to come up with the material quantity variance usage, which is 600. Kung ako tatanungin, ito talaga ang exact na answer. Kasi the problem is very silent as to what type of material quantity variance. And if the problem is silent, okay, the quantity variance must be based on usage. Pero, if you are required to compute for the material quantity variance based on purchase, same computation, you determine the standard quantity, which is 5 multiplied by 6,000, lalabas itong 3,000, pero you differentiate that to the quantity actually purchased, which is 3,400. 3,000 minus 3,400, we have unfavorable pa rin, then multiply it to the standard price, unfavorable pa rin na variance based on purchase. Okay? Pero again, no, ito po ay priority natin kasi ito naman talaga ang nire-require. Unless otherwise, the problems clearly stipulate that you compute the material quantity variance based on purchase, dito na po tayo magko-compute. That you get the difference between the standard quantity and the actual quantity purchased. Okay? Hopefully, you get the point on this particular item. So, to sum up, no, how to compute the material quantity variance, that is actual quantity minus standard quantity multiply at standard price. Okay? Okay, and if material quantity variance is used, it is usually based on usage. Doon naman po tayo sa standard direct labor cost. Ito. The following direct labor information pertains to the manufacture of glue, a product glue. Time required to make 1 unit is 2 labor hours. And then, number of direct workers is 50. Okay. And the number of productive hours per week per worker is 40. weekly wages per worker is 500 and the worker's benefits treated as direct labor cost is 20%. Take note, clearly stipulated that the worker's benefit shall form part of the direct labor cost, so it will be part of the computation of the standard direct labor cost. To compute for the standard direct labor cost related to this problem, ito lang. Take note, in each unit, we need 2 direct labor hours. And then, cost of each hour is 12.5. Paano na-compute yung 12.5? Ito yon. We have 500 pesos per week, and then every week, there were 40 hours required. If you divide 500 to 40, that is 12.5 per hour. Okay? No? So, if 2 hours, direct labor hours in each unit, that is multiplied by 12.5, that is 25. Plus the benefits of 5, sa paano po na-compute yung 5? That is 25 pesos multiplied by 20% workers' benefit, which will be treated as direct labor cost, that is 5. The direct labor cost at standard is 30. Ganun lang po, kasimple yun. Okay, wag po natin pahirapan ng ating mga sarili to compute the standard direct labor cost. Okay? So, hopefully, naintindihan po itong topic na to. How about the standard labor time? Ito naman. Ito parang mas mahaba-haba yata ang solution yung prepare ko dito, no? Hansen Company is a chemical manufacturer that supplies to industries. The company plans to introduce a new chemical solution called BISAP, for which it needs to develop a standard product cost. The following labor information is available on the production of BISAP. The product, which is bottled in 10-liter containers, is primarily a mixture of Vaseline, Salex, and Protex. The finished product is highly unstable and one 10-liter batch of 6 is rejected at final inspection. Rejected batches have no commercial value and are thrown out. Take note, yung nare-reject, wala pong value at it is thrown out. So, who will absorb that? That's the question. Who will absorb the hours, okay, incurred on that rejected batch na na-reject? Okay? It takes a worker 35 minutes to process 1 10-liter batch of BISAP. Employees work 8 hours a day. Take note, 8 hours a day. Yung trabaho ng employees, including 1 hour per day rest. Okay. Ito po, computation natin doon. The answer for that is 48. Kaso, magtataka ka, paano na-compute yung 48? Okay. Ito muna, no? We have 1 10-liter batch. For each 1 10-liter batch, okay, no? We have 35 minutes. That's correct. Okay? Hindi po natin yun, it is clearly stipulated in the problem that it takes a worker 35 minutes to process 1 liter batch of BISAP. Okay, that's correct. Saan po itong allocated minutes from the rest time of na 5 minutes? Okay, ganito po ha. Okay. Sundan nyo po yung pag-compute ko, no? The total working minutes is 480. Paano po yan na-compute na 480? Okay? That is 8 hours a day multiplied by 60 minutes. That is 480. Pero may including sa 480 is yung breaking time. Take note, may break time po tayo na 1 hour multiplied by 60, kaya nga naging 60. We need to deduct the 60 from 480 to determine kung magkano lang talaga ang direct related to the production, which is 420. Okay? Ibig sabihin, 420 minutes are directly related to the production while the 60 minutes is related to the break time. Okay? And then, allowable time for each unit is 35. If we're going to divide 420 to 35, we have 12 units. So, ibig sabihin, in a day, we are expecting that each labor can produce 12 units. Okay? So, importante muna itong kinumpute natin para at least, okay, makompute natin kung magkano yung oras, okay, minuto sa bawat isang sa isang product na na-produce. The allowable rest time is 60. Ito yon, galing ito yan sa taas. And then, we divide to the number of units na 12. Ito yon na 12. 60 over 12, ibig sabihin, each unit absorbs 5 minutes of the rest time. So that's why allocated minutes from the rest time is 5 minutes. So the total time allocated to one batch is 40 minutes. Okay, ito yon, 40 minutes. So if all of the batches were successfully inspected, the standard labor time is 40. However, the problem provided you a statement saying 1 10-liter batch out of 6 is rejected at final inspection. Rejected batches have no commercial value and are thrown out. If these rejected batches have no commercial value and are thrown out, it shall be absorbed by the successful of the batches who undergoes a inspection na naging successful. So, take note that each batch is required to have 40 minutes. Okay, so 40 minutes, ito yon. And then, however, dahil sa 6 yun, yung 6 dapat na batch, yung isa nawala. Okay, nawala. Okay? So, yung 40 na yon, okay, na reject, paghahatiin ng 5 na naging successful kasi yung isang batch is not wala na siyang commercial value and it is being thrown out. And the time consumed on that must be absorbed by those batches na naging successful. At ilang batches lang ang naging successful? That is 5. So, 40 minutes, okay, for each batch, divide by 5 related to the batches na naging successful kasi 6 dapat sana, kaso yung isa hindi naging successful. So, yung 5, paghahati-hatian nila yung 40 minutes allocated to that unsuccessful batch from the inspection. So, each successful batch will absorb 8 minutes plus the normal time for rejects, okay, which is 8 minutes. So, the total standard time per unit, including the rejected one, is 48 minutes. So, the answer is 48 minutes. If there were no rejected batches, the answer will be 40. Okay? Pero, meron kasing rejected na 1, okay, naging 48. Okay? Hopefully, you can able to grasp how the 48 was being computed. Next, direct labor rate variance and efficiency variance. Itong direct labor rate variance and efficiency variance, hindi naman po ito nagkakalayo sa material efficiency, sa material price variance at material usage variance. It has the same format of computation, magkakaiba lang kasi yung materials are based on the quantity purchased and used. Dito naman sa direct labor rate and efficiency variance, the computation is based on hours, actual hours used. Okay? Pink's direct labor costs for April are as follows. Standard direct labor hours, 42,000 hours. Actual direct labor hours, 41,200. Total direct labor payroll, 247,200. And the standard labor rate is 5. Let us compute the direct labor rate variance and the direct direct labor efficiency variance. To compute for the labor rate variance, parehos lang po siya ng material price variance. We need to differentiate the standard rate and the actual rate. In this case, the standard rate is 5 and the actual rate, kinumpute pa po natin yan, which is 247,200 po ang nasa payroll, at then 41,200, ito po yung actual paid, and then actual hours used, hours incurred, no? Okay, incurred. Okay, so we divide 247 divide 41,200, that is 6 pesos. That's the actual rate. And then get the difference between the standard rate and the actual rate, and that would be your rate variance. Okay, which is 6, which is -1. In this case, that is very unfavorable because you are expecting to pay your manggagawa at 5, but you actually paid them at 6, which is -1. Okay, sometimes, no, the reason why the standard the rate variance is unfavorable, kasi itong reason, no, you standard rate at 5 and then you actually pay it at 6. Baka naman kasi masyadong professional at competent masyado ang kinuha mong manggagawa, mas mahal yung nakuha mo, no? Okay, kaya nagkakaroon ng rate variances. Okay, so 5 minus 6, that's -1, that's unfavorable. Multiply the actual hours, kasi the rate variances must be based on the actual hours. That's 41,200. The labor rate variance is 41,200 unfavorable. How about the labor efficiency variance? Okay, same with the material usage variance, we will base it in the standard hours and actual hours used in the production. Okay, we have 42,000 standard hours and the actual hours is 41,000. From that 42,000, you are expecting from that manggagawa, and then 41,200 lang ang actually hours na na-incur. Oh, if we're going to relate this in the labor rate variance, we can say mahal yung rate pero matrabaho, mabilis. That's how we explain, no, the rate and the efficiency, even the price and the quantity variance. No, that's how we interpret. Okay, take note, ha? That's how we interpret the variances. We just not simply compute whether favorable or unfavorable. We also identify saan galing yung unfavorable na yan at saan galing yung favorable, ano ang reason. For example, in this case, okay, unfavorable yung rate kasi mahal binayaran, pero naging favorable yung efficiency variance kasi mas konting oras lang trinabaho ng mga manggagawa yung required na ine-expect mong ipapatrabaho. That is the explanation for that. So 42,000 minus 41,200, we have 800 favorable variance. So that is 800, i-multiply mo at standard rate, which is 5,000, the labor efficiency variance is 4,000 favorable. Okay, this is a basic example, no, of how we interpret and analyze the variances. Okay, so hopefully naintindihan nyo po yung labor rate variance at labor efficiency variance. Let's proceed naman, okay, to computation of mix and yield variances. Itong mix and yield variances, lalabas lang to if a particular product, no, a particular product is produced because of multiple materials used and multiple labor categories. Ibig sabihin ng labor categories, meron masa, iba lang yung nag um, naghalo, iba lang yung nag-assemble. That's a different labor categories, no? Okay, so however, in my illustration as of now, okay, I just focus on materials. Okay, whether materials or labor, we have the same process on determining the mix and the yield variances. Kung paano ko po computein yung material mix variance at yield variance, yun din po natin ko computein yung labor mix variance at labor yield variance. Okay? So that's why I focus my problem on the materials. The actual cost of materials is 1.1 per pound of material A and 0.4 of material B. Okay? That's the actual cost. Actual cost, no? And then, the actual usage of material is 2,900 pounds sa material A and 1,900 sa material B. The company's standard cost for production is 3 pounds of material A and 2,000 of material B. Okay? And then, nasa na ba ako? For every unit of product X produced at a cost of 1 pesos per pound of material A and 0.5 per pound of material B, 1,000 units of products X was produced. Okay. To compute, una po natin dapat gawin is to determine yung tinatawag kong total actual quantity at standard rate. Paano po natin ko-computein yon? Ito yon. This is my solution to compute the total actual quantity at standard rate. Kunin si material A, material B. Then, kunin mo yung actual quantity for each material. The actual quantity, okay, for material A, based on the problem, was 2,900. Then, material B, actual quantity was 1,900. After that, kunin mo yung standard price ng bawat material. In this case, sa material A, that's 1 peso. Then on material B, that's 0.5. And then multiply it. 2,900 multiplied by 1, that is 2,900. And then 1,900 multiplied by 0.5, that is 950. So, the total actual quantity at standard rate is 3,850. Ito yon. Okay? So, yon. Nagamit ko yung 3,850. Again, no, para makompute muna yung material mix variance or the labor mix variance, kunin mo muna si total actual quantity at standard rate. Okay? Kung labor mix variance yan, the total actual hours at standard rate. Okay? Next, kunin mo yung total actual quantity at average standard cost. Problema mo ngayon, paano i-determine yung average standard cost? Okay? Average standard cost. Okay? Ito yon, no? May sagot na nga ako, material mix variance. Pero, yung problema mo, how did I come up with the total actual quantity at average standard cost? Ito yon. Okay? Una, material A, 3,000. Paano ko po na-compute yung 3,000 na yan? Take note that each unit at standard for production is 3. Okay, for material A, 3. And then, yung actual produce po natin ng product is 1,000. Ayun, no? 1,000 units of product X was produced. So, 3 multiplied by 1,000, that's 3,000. Itong si material B, paano rin naman na-compute? Take note, ilan po yung standard pounds for each product produced? 2. So that is 2 multiplied by 1,000, that is 2,000. So that's the standard quantity for material B. The standard rate, alam na po natin yan, that is 1 peso and 0.5. So, multiply each. 3,000 times 1,000, that's 3,000. 2,000 times 0.5, that is 1,000. So, the total is 4,000. Okay? Okay? That is 4,000. So, para ma-compute yung average cost, that is 4,000, ito yon, no? 4,000, the total standard cost, i-divide mo sa total standard quantity. 4,000 divide by 5,000, that is 0.8. Okay? That would be your average standard cost. Okay? Average standard cost. Okay? 4,000 divided by 5,000, that would be your average standard cost. Which is, gagamitin mo para mahanap itong 3,840. Paano po na-compute yung 3,840? From the statement itself, total actual quantity at average standard cost. Nahanap na po natin yung average standard cost na 0.8, i-multiply na lang po natin sa total actual quantity. Paano po malalaman yung total actual quantity? Take note, the actual quantity is the sum of all materials na actually used, which is 29 plus 19, that is 4,800. So, that is 3,840. The difference of these two, okay, ito yon. That is the material mix variance. Kaya, na-compute ko po yung 10 piso na material mix variance. The difference between the total actual quantity at standard rate and the total actual quantity at average standard cost is the material mix variance. How about, sir, kung labor mix to? Well, same pa rin. The total actual hours at standard rate and versus the total actual hours at average standard cost is the labor mix variance. Okay, tapos na ako sa material mix. How about naman sa yield? Okay, mas madali na, yun lang yung yield. Kasi, yung total actual quantity na na-compute natin at average standard cost, gagamitin pa rin natin yon, which is 3,840. And then, the total standard cost, saan po galing yan? Ito yon, ito yan, na 4,000. The sum of standard cost for each material, which is 4,000. The total standard cost versus the total actual quantity at average standard cost is the material yield variance. So, that's it. We're done with the material mix and material yield variance. Pag labor, same procedure din. Okay. Sir, multiple products. How about if we are required to compute the material usage? If you are required to compute the material usage or quantity variance in a multiple products, iisa-isahin mo lang ganito, no? Material A, actual quantity used versus standard quantity, that's 1,000. Multiply at standard price, that's 100. Okay? Then, 1,900 versus standard quantity, that's 100, that's 500, that's 50. To determine the total material usage variance, i-total mo lang yung variance. Ito kasi pareho silang favorable, mabuti, naging add sila. Pero kung mag-iba yan, naging unfavorable yung isa dyan sa kanila, i-minus mo yung unfavorable to come up with the total material usage variance. Another thing that I want to impart, related to this, itong material usage variance is related to the yield and mix variance. Okay. Take note, the material usage variance is 150. Look, the material yield variance you have computed was 160, favorable. The material mix variance na na-compute mo was 10, na unfavorable. If you're going to combine that, that is the material usage variance. Sa labor, counterpart ng labor, this is the labor efficiency variance. Okay? So, yon. Okay? Ganun lang. Okay? So far, I have already illustrated the important parts, topics, on the first part, first part pa lang yun, on the variable, on the standard costing and variance analysis na topic. Okay? So, next time, I will naman prepare my illustrations of problems and computations on overhead variances. See you and keep safe everyone. God bless and thank you sa pakikinig.